Now as you can see, we can change the gradient by click and drag, and we can move the gradient around this. So I can change it to diagonal. I can keep it horizontal, or I can go back to vertical. Oops. So there is this circle, there is this white circle. You have to select, you have to click and drag it to give it a different gradient, to give it a different angle. Now you can also, if you want more of the light and less of the dark color, then just move the color. As you can see, it's increasing, and the same with your second color. If you want to add a color, you can add it just by clicking here. I'll control Z. So I am here on the color section right now. I will click in between. So here is my new color. Now let's say you want to have a different color there. In this way, you can add multiple color to your line. You can also add one here directly on the line and give it a different color. So that's how you can have multiple gradient in your shape. We will remove this. I will select it and delete. I'll press delete on my keyboard. I'll select this and delete on my keyboard. And we will just have two color gradient, and we'll close this. So that's the color property for your shape. Now let's bring some other shape. The one other thing about the rectangle is that if we bring rectangle, and when we placed the earlier rectangle, we click dragged on the on a design file, and we created a rectangle. Now let's say we first press shift and we click and drag, then it's going to give us a square. So rectangle is the same tool which you can use for square as well as for rectangle. As you can see, the width and height is exactly the same, and I will change it to, let's say, 400. Now I will overlap this. I will overlap this on my rectangle. Okay. Every time you bring in a shape on your file, or be a text element, be it any element, it will always create a different layer. So I will say this is a rectangle with yellow gradient, and this is my square. Let's give a color to the square. Okay, yellow, and let's say we can do a blue. Okay, let's give it a corner radius. The same properties will apply to all the shapes. Okay, the next thing that we wanted to see was the opacity of the color. So I'll go to the color and I will reduce the opacity. Now, since there is an object in the background, we can see that the opacity has reduced. So you can either go inside the color or you have it right outside. I will say 20%. So now your opacity of your shape has changed to, we have changed it to 50% now. So that's how you can change the opacity of the color. Now let's see stroke. I'll bring this back to 100. Let's see how stroke works. I will add a stroke. Okay, as you can see, there is a black border, but we'll change the color of the border so that we can see it clearly. Now you can apply a color to the border. You can also reduce and increase the opacity. As you can see, now it's gone, and now we have the color back. We can keep the border. We can decide whether we want it inside the frame, we want it outside the frame, or right at the center, so that half border is inside, half is outside. I will first increase the width. So this is where you can increase the width. Okay, so right now, because it's inside, it's increasing the width inside it. It's going inside the shape. We will change it to center. So as you can see, now it's sort of overlapping. The blue lines are showing where exactly the shape ends, and now you can see that partial border is inside, the rest is outside. Now we'll move it to outside. So now See, my shape, the selection of my shape is this blue line. Okay, these blue lines and anchors, and the white thing, which is the border, is completely outside that selection. So that's outside. Now let's say I will reduce it to, let's say, 5. Okay, now let's say you want border on just one side of the shape. So what you can do is you can select this. Okay, it will allow you to pick which side do you want, either top or bottom or just left. Now let's say we want left and bottom. So this is giving me an option to select one individual side. However, you have an option to select custom and say this is left, this is top. As you can see, the icon here indicates which border will change, and then we have this one is bottom. Okay, then we will have 5 as the, so now we have a custom border which is just the left and the bottom. Now okay, let's just stick to left. Okay, now we have added color, we have thickness of the stroke, and we know that we have border only on the one side of the shape. Now there are more properties to the stroke where you can change the style of the stroke. So you can click on this icon which is 3 lines. I'll click on it and see, you can see the style. It can be solid or it can be dotted. Now I'll click on this and it will tell me it will tell me what are the values that I want to use so that I can get the desired stroke style. I will say the dashed size should be 2 pixels. Okay, so now it's it gives me a sort of dotted look, or let's say 4. We'll increase it a little, and here gap again 4. Okay, now we will take a closer look at this. As you can see, by default the edges are sharp. Okay, however, we can either choose to, okay, we can make it rounded. These are the corners. So for corners we will require, let's say, all sides. We will go back to all sides and we will say round edges. Now you have round edges at all the corners. We will do one thing, we'll increase the gap to 8, further to 12, further to 16, and see what's happening. So now it has a nice rounded corners. You can also have the joins as rounded, but it's already rounded now because you have a corner radius also. So this is how you can change the style of the border. I will change it back to none. Okay, 2 pixel and 4 pixel, and this again to 2 pixel. So now I have a sort of dotted border. So this is how you can change the stroke properties and use different type of borders. I will change the opacity here and keep it on top of my rectangle. Okay, now let's go back to the shape tool and bring in a line and arrow. You can use a line and then change it to arrow also. Let's start. I will click on line, or you can press the L key on keyboard. Now see, my cursor has changed. I'll click and drag. I will press shift so that I have some alignment. See, as you can see, now my alignment doesn't change. It will stick to some angle. Okay, now this is my line. It's a black line by default. Let's change the color to white so that we can see it. Now as you can see, these are all, because it's a line, it will only have a stroke, right? So as you can see, there are these properties of stroke. We have changed the color. We have seen how color works. In this case, there is a start point and there is an end point. So we started here. Now let's see what happens when we go to the start point. Line arrow. So we are telling it that it needs to start like this, or we can select the way it needs to start. Okay, so line arrow. Let's say I'll reduce the size of this. I'll press shift and reduce so that again I do not lose my alignment. Okay, now this is like my back arrow. Okay, but I want this portion rounded, so I will select it, and the right side section, the end point, I will say I want it rounded. See, you can see the change, rounded. So now the overall icon has a rounded edge. Now let's replicate this line. Okay, I'll copy and I'll paste it. It's pasted on top of that. Either you can rotate it like this, or I'll do a Control Z. You can right click and you can say flip horizontal. Okay, it will automatically change it. Now select this, and because you have rotated, the position of the arrow has already changed. So now this is your another icon. Let's take a line. Let's create this arrow. Can you see the left is also an arrow, right is also an arrow. So we will take another line. Okay, we will again change this to white, and my start point is also an arrow, my end point is also an arrow. So that's how you can have both the properties on the same line and use it. The other thing that you can do with shapes is, I will delete this and keep the two on the side. These two tiny little icons will go here. Okay, now let's bring in a circle, which is the ellipse. As you can see, when we do line and arrow, we can actually change the line to an arrow. Now we will move to ellipse, which is a circle, or we'll press the O key. Okay, if I click drag directly, it will give me an oval. However, if I press shift, it will give me a proper circle. Okay, what you can do is, if you directly, ellipse, if you directly click and drag and you get an oval like this, you can just go here and give it width and same height. It's again a circle. So how do I change my circle properties? We have fill, we have stroke. Let's see what are the other things that we can do here. Oops. Yeah, so if you have to edit a shape, okay, what we can do is select the shape, and then there is this icon on top. It will allow you to edit the object. I will click on this and we will see what happens. I'll click. Okay, now here it says there are 4 anchor points. Okay, I am just changing. I will select this, okay, and I will change it. See, I can distort this shape and use it the way I want. Okay, now I have a different shape. Let's okay, now let's try something else. So these are the anchor points, and these are your handles. So anchor point is where you can change the whole thing. You can move it along with the anchors. However, the handle is what will allow you to give it a curve. So let's say we are making it something like a drop. Okay, and here it is. I will invert this. It's a fat drop. Okay, so let's reduce the size, or it's like a petal. So you can, using edit object, you can change the shape of an existing shape.